1.
All right. Welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon reviews. Up this week, we've got a whopping 4 reviews to get through. Though that's not as heady as it might sound at first glance. Trust me, like the 2 of the reviews, they're not going to be too long. And honestly, the 3rd review is not going to be very long for other reasons. But it's like more on those when we get to them. First up is a game called Unforeseen Incidents. It is a point-and-click adventure game out of Germany from developer Backwoods Entertainment and publisher System Information Heidelberg. Yeah, it's a bit of an odd name. Like, not the first... no, Application Systems Heidelberg, sorry. Kind of blanked there for a second. Anyway, so I guess where to start is the premise. You play as a guy named Harper who is, a typical, kind of a typical everyman protagonist. He's very down to earth, though he's a bit of an electrician, like bit of a handyman, not too bright. And he lives in the, rural backwater town called Yelltown. And this place is dealing with an outbreak of disease. Pretty lazily named Yelltown fever. And, Harper comes upon this woman who's, suffering from the illness and, catches him in a web of... This isn't a spoiler or anything. Like, as it turns out, this whole virus fever thing is manufactured by a shadowy cabal. And, your job is
spoilers.
Yeah, it's like, that is the thing that kind of culminates in the first chapter. But, be honest, if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't have much of a game now, would we? I mean, I guess they could do the natural virus, but I don't think that would work well in an adventure game setting. That's more a management sim thing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, so your job is basically to set right what went wrong. It's like find a cure for the disease, stop the death cult, save the world. Like,
a typical Saturday night for an adventure game protagonist.
Yeah. And typical is the word I would use to describe this game in a nutshell. Like, the most interesting thing it has going for is its art style. It's got this off-kilter cartoony thing going on here. I'm not exactly sure what to call it. Like, it's like, if you see it up close, like especially at 1080p or something, you'll note how rough and sloppy it looks. And that really does feel like design. Like, Harper's head is kind of askew, for example.
Also kind of small.
Yes, it's got, it's very weird and deliberate, and I'm not exactly sure, if there's a deeper intent behind it, or if that was just something to make the game stand out.
Yeah, in some of these screenshots, it looks like his neck's almost broken. It's weird.
Yeah, like I said, it's not immediately striking, but once you start seeing it, it's kind of off kilter. Like,
bro, call a chiropractor, Jesus.
Yes. He's got a very odd head. Like,
Indeed.
now, and this is a fairly long game. I've played it for 12 hours before running out of time. I'm somewhere in the middle of chapter 3. I'm not exactly sure where that is in the game. But yeah, adventure games can be long, especially when you don't know what to do.
Is it one of those you basically have to figure out the developer's logic?
Not honestly, the developer logic on display here wasn't the worst. Like, in fact, this is one of the more logical games. That is to say, it's a very earthly logic. Like, when you like, everything here makes sense in a real world context. Like, I didn't encounter, the moon logic.
What was it, King's Quest 3?
King's Quest 2. Like, there's a lot of
Oh.
Discworld. God, Discworld was... Oh, that was bad.
Like levels of how somebody committed?
I mean, in Discworld, it's in character for the world.
I get that. I'm just saying, like, playing the first Discworld game, I needed a guide.
Mm-hmm.
In this game, honestly, the bigger issue was conveyance issues. Like, some of the puzzles here rely on visuals. Like, dealing with the hydroelectric dam puzzle vexed me for a good deal of time until I figured out what they wanted me to do. Well, it's like they set up these 3 levers, and you're not immediately sure what the hell you do them, and Harper just doesn't really indicate anything. And it's not until you go back to a certain place and see a certain thing, and you go, okay, that's what they meant. It's another standard trapping of adventure games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but yeah, it's like, and it's got puzzles of both varieties. It's got the, use the item to progress kind of puzzles, and it's got some logic puzzles as well. Its controls are classic point and click stuff, with the requisite quality of life improvements. That is to say, it's got hotspot finding, and any game that doesn't have that these days is getting its hole torn by me, because I hate pixel hunting. Like, I've played enough modern adventure games to know that you can showcase where everything is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the music alternates from being depressing. The atmosphere of this game is quite dour at points, as you'd expect. And there's a lot of backwoodsy kind of music, not country, but more, say, bluegrass. There's a difference.
I hate bluegrass.
I'm like, a lot of bands.
I presume you have better grounding for hating bluegrass than most of us.
I do.
What with the Kentucky thing?
Yeah. Though I'll note the specific flavoring that they're going for here isn't Appalachia. It's more the Midwest. And once again, yes, there's a difference.
Yep.
Let's see. What else is there to talk about? I guess pricing. The game clocks in at $20, which is a fair price for an indie developed adventure game of this caliber. Like, and the voice acting. The voice acting is surprisingly solid, given that this game was created by non-English speaking people. I'm like, not sure exactly how they handled that. That's the kind of thing you need an interview to get, or some behind the scenes stuff. And I don't recall seeing any like makings of, at least not in game. They might exist on YouTube. I just didn't have time to look into that. Yeah. All in all, this is I'd say it's a solid adventure game with a compelling narrative and characters alongside that. It's got a quirky and dark sense of humor. Everything else is pretty bog standard. Like, it's an adventure game in terms of mechanics. If you don't like point and click, if you don't like dealing with, using items to progress, that if you're more into like Telltale games and what they do, this isn't for you. But if you like the old school, you'll be right at home here. All right. So yeah, that'll about do it for the review of Unforeseen Incidents.
Yeah, it's hard to talk. It's hard to talk in great detail about adventure games since most of it would be spoilers.
It's like, also, I was the only one who got a code for this.
Mm-hmm.
The next game.
Yeah,
so
and it's $20, so it's a little bit steep for us to just pick up.
Yeah, it's like, so,
I mean, I'm not saying it's not worth $20. It's just that $20 isn't enough for me. Is more than I can just drop on a whim.
Right.
Mhm.
Like, I wasn't yeah, $20 is a bit of an investment, as opposed to free, which is what defines some of the other games we're reviewing tonight. Anyway, but yeah, it's a solid game, just a bit plain in terms of its mechanics. Presentation's pretty stellar, especially its art style. Some people might not like it, but I think it gives it some unique flavor.
How much of it is voiced? It says here that it has both English and German voice acting, but like, is everything voiced or just dialogue? Yes.
Or everything is voiced. I'm like, everything. In fact, like, Harper is a chatterbox. Like, he will voice out every description. Sometimes the other characters will comment on his comments. And yes, that does get meta. Like, at one point, a character will remark, "You sure talk a lot, don't you?" And he goes, "I live alone, so I talk to myself a lot."
Mm-hmm.
So, that's kind of that's some of the humor of this game. Like, let's see. Yeah, I think that's about it. So be sure to join us. We'll be right back. We just got to change our veneer to reflect the next game, Omen Sight.